Hello and welcome to our virtual science expo. My name is Bailey and today I'm going to be taking you through an activity called Air is Everywhere. And this activity focuses entirely on air pressure. If you would like to follow along, you can click the link just below this video, and in our detailed activity list it's called Air is Everywhere, and it will give you my step-by-step procedure of what I'm about to do and further discussion of what's happening. So, in order to do this activity, you need an Erlenmeyer flask. This one is a 500 milliliter one. The most important part about using the right size is that you also need a tea light that can fit in the top of the flask. So, you need Erlenmeyer flask, a tea light, a pan. I'm currently using a pie pan. It doesn't matter what kind of pan, I'm just using a pie pan. We're going to put the tea light right in the center, and then this red liquid is just water with red food coloring added. I added the red food dye for the purposes of visualizing in this video. It is not essential, but it does help that visualization process. So our focus question for this activity is, does air move from areas of high pressure to low pressure or low pressure to high pressure? And hopefully as I do this, you can get a better understanding of why it works that way. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to light this tea light and I'm going to place our flask upside down right on top of it, and I'm going to heat up the air inside. And one thing that will really help you understand what's going on in this is to think about air pressure in two different areas. So the first area is the air that's actually inside of our flask. That's one region of air pressure. And then the air surrounding our activity is the second area. So it's going to move from high to low or low to high, from outside to inside the flask, or from inside the flask to outside, depending on the answer to this question. So let's find out. I'm gonna light our tea light, and that is going to produce heat, and that's actually going to heat up the air inside the flask. So I'm gonna lightly put this down. You may notice some bubbles forming there. And you can actually see that the water is being pulled inside the flask and this candle is floating on top, which is why it's raising. Raises up, 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 and the candle has burnt out. I believe that's as much as it's going to raise. So, what happened here? Why is the candle floating on top of water inside of the flask? It's all is because of air pressure. So what happened is when I lit that candle and I put the flask on top, that actually heated up the air inside of this flask. And when air gets hot, it actually expands. So all of those air molecules are going to spread out and expand, and that's going to create a high pressure system inside of our flask. And that air really wants to escape. So when I set it down, we actually saw some air bubbles. You might want to rewind your video to try and see some of those air bubbles forming. And that was actually the air from inside the flask trying to escape out through the water. But as the oxygen was limited because we put the flask on there, the candle started to burn out, the air cooled, and it starts to condense. And after all of that air had escaped out from the water, it all helped create a low pressure system inside of the flask, which means everything out here, all of this air now has become the high pressure area. And that all of that pressure was forced down onto the water, and that water was then forced inside of our flask. So air here moved from an area of high pressure to low pressure, or at the start, it moved from an area of high pressure inside our flask out and into the area of low pressure. So hopefully this visualization helped you understand how air moves. If you have any further questions about what happened here, please click on that link and find Air is Everywhere, and this document will hopefully answer any of your future questions or outstanding questions. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this activity.